Reddit, what is the single dumbest thing you have ever done? Knife in the toaster while it was on. I had to lie down for about 30 hours afterwards. My teeth were particularly painful. I use wooden chopsticks. Ammonia and bleach. Someone called me at home, told me to take a bucket and clean the tiles in the detached shed. The bucket had, I thought, water in it. Nope, ammonia. I added bleach. I managed to get a half lung full of the gas before I, apparently, started running out of the shed and across the yard. Apparently I made it about 150 feet away from the shed before I passed out. Woke up an unknown amount of time later, extremely dizzy. Couldn't stand up for about 10 minutes. Then I went back in the house, not the shed, and sat on the couch for the rest of the day. Smelling chlorine still gives me micro panic attacks. It's crap like this, and the thought of accidentally choking to death while eating alone, that sometimes makes me afraid to do anything that needs to be done, like cleaning and eating. I pulled a gun on 2 German cops on my 19th birthday while celebrating at the Rock Fabrik in Schweinfurt. They were within a millisecond of ending my existence. A girl that I met at a hookah bar asked me to go to her house while her parents were gone to have some drinks with her friends. Everything was going well and she invited me to go to her room. While we were there we started to hook up. She went into the bathroom to go change or something. But as soon as she went inside I hear the music stop and her loud footsteps coming upstairs. At this point I am completely hammered, so I only cared about getting laid. Then, a very large and angry man steps into the room and shouts, "Who the frick are you and where is my daughter?" I was not wearing my pants. At this moment I replied, my name is Andrew and I think I should go. So I walked past him as he yells in my face that if he ever sees me again he was going to beat my butt with a bat. As I sat in my car, I started to text and call the girl who I was with. Finally someone picks up. It was her father. "WHO is this? This is Andrew. Who is this? Drunk dumbass that I am." He hangs up and I see him come outside his house with a metal bat. He shatters a piece of my windshield. So I back into a garden and drove off. I don't remember much of the ride home except that I survived. TLDR. I got really drunk with a girl I didn't really know and her dad tried to kill me with a bat so I drove off very drunk. Yes hello, this is Andrew. I believe we met just before. Trollface JPG. I worked at a coffee shop and was hanging out up there on a night off as the employees often did. As a friend was closing up I was outside and I decided to jump at the safety glass in the door to be funny. I ended up breaking the window and going through it. I made it out of there with only a small cut on my cheek but it was a stupid thing to do. I was riding my bike one time and I thought hey, I should see what it's like to ride with my eyes closed so I closed my eyes and rode my bike. Then strayed off and hit a stationary car. I ate crap. My friend Cody did this exact same thing but crashed into an electric cattle fence. Got his jacket stuck on the barbs and struggled to get off while it shocked him every 2 seconds. I once thought I lost my phone in a dark car, so to search for it, I used the light from my phone. Literally took me about 10 seconds to realize the stupidity. This is my major downfall when I'm high or drunk. I once looked for my purse. Inside my purse. Senior year of high school, I decided to hang a sign off the side of my school asking my girlfriend to prom. Made a huge sign, 8 feet x 25 feet, rolled it up into a tube, and got to school super early. Climbed on top of the school by first climbing on top of a tall service truck that was parked next to the building. I then made my way to a section of the roof overlooking the student parking lot where I knew she would park, and hung up the sign with duct tape. Whole thing took me 3 minutes tops. The problem? I decided to wrap a shirt around my face to avoid being recognized, and between that and the mysterious tube on my back, apparently I looked like a terrorist. Long story short, I ended up explaining to the police what I was doing on the roof at 6 AM with scissors, duct tape and a dozen roses, while a helicopter and 6 squad cars headed to my school. Community service ensued. Got off easy because the vice principal in charge of my punishment is an alumna of university I now attend. TLDR. Tried to be romantic, was briefly a threat to Homeland Security. Regarding the vice principal and my punishment, she graduated from Notre Dame in the 1970s. I got into ND by early admission in December 2010. This story went down in 2011. She knew where I was going to college when she handed out the punishment. I was walking down the street once eating potato chips out of a bag and drinking a Snapple. I was holding a bag in one hand, so I had to hold both the chips and the Snapple in the other hand. When I was done with the chips, I turned the bag upside down into my mouth to get all the crumbs and thus emptied almost an entire bottle of Snapple on my face. I used to work for some uber rich guy. I was kind of his handyman but mostly maintained the grounds, mowing, raking. His property was large enough that you need a golf cart just to get around in a timely manner. They went out of town and I was scheduled to be there the day they got back. I was working as normal. I realized I forget something in the garage, so I hopped in the golf cart and started to head up to the garage. Their driveway had a massive for being a driveway, hill that had a pretty steep incline. The golf cart died. So now I am stuck on this hill. I am about 20 feet from the top. Mind you, I am only 16 at the time. Me brains ain't be the good. I remembered that the other guy that works there would tie one golf cart to the other. So I went to grab the other cart and some rope. I tied the dead cart to the other. I made all sorts of weird loops and not to do my best at ensuring the rope wouldn't slip. As most of you probably know, the parking brake on carts is the brake pedal, but just push down all the way. I hope into the dead cart and release the brake slowly. It rolls back slightly and the rope tightens. I stay seated just for a few seconds. Oh good, the rope seems to be holding. I feel like MacGyver. I get out and walk to the tow cart. I release its brake and start to inch forward. I look back, the other cart is rolling forward too. All is well. Snap. The rope breaks. I look back and it's starting to roll back. I jump out of the tow cart and start to chase the cart rolling backwards. I catch up with this, but all I can do is hit the brake with my fist. I take the hardest swing at it that I can muster. The tires squeal for half a second and then the brake pops off and the cart is now moving too fast for me. Defeated, I watch it roll backwards into the $5,000 gate. Smash! It hits the motor directly. Feeling like I just royally fricked everything. I turn around and see the other cart rolling down the hill too. But this one veers off to the left. It hits a big rock, flips on its side and slide on into a large koi pond. I run down, dislodged a dead cart from the gate motor, and while trying to pull the other cart out of the water, the owner shows up. He asked what the heck is happening here. I said the funniest thing happened. Needless to say, I no longer work there. Was a DJ at a college radio station, taking a smoke break on the roof. Saw a friend walking up the steps of the student union, 3 floors down. Decided it would be funny to throw my almost empty beer can at him. Didn't have my glasses on. It wasn't my friend. It was a campus cop. Ah, the joys of college radio. I plugged a drain with crushed ice once, then spent an hour trying to clear the drain before I realized that ice melts. I think I'm more surprised that in that hour, all the ice didn't melt before you unclog the drain. When I was younger, I ding-donged or ditched my friend's neighbor. Apparently that person had just brought their elderly mother home from the hospital, and when I rang the bell it caused her to have a minor heart attack. She lived, but it was close. When I found out about it, I felt so terrible that I cut their grass, trimmed their flowers for 7 years for free. I only stopped because I moved away. Still feel like I owe them something. Is it bad? I laughed really hard at this. Yes, so grandma came home. She was having a heart attack while I was sleeping, and if it wasn't for the doorbell I wouldn't have had enough time to get her to the air. Then for some reason this kid keeps cutting our lawn and trimming our flowers. We haven't had the heart to tell him this iced his yard. When I was about 10, I started diving off of the diving board at the local pool. I went home one day and really wanted to practice diving, so I stood on the edge of my parents' bed, closed my eyes and did a perfect dive face first into the carpet. It hurt. 10-year-old logic at its finest. Agreed to go camping with this friend of mine. When I got there, I found out that he had invited some other people there who were actually neo-Nazis, and so was my friend. I'm not white at all. When they went up to hike, I said I had to pee and ran back to the parking lot and got the frick out of there. Yes, I know it wasn't totally my fault, but I still feel dumb about going there in the first place. First time going to the gym at college, I walk in and exchange my ID for a key. I proceed to go into the locker room. lock all my crap in a locker, and go upstairs to work out. It's about 10 AM on a weekend, so there's almost no one else there when I start my lift. I finish up and it's just starting to get packed. I walk into the wrong locker room and see a girl changing. She sees me and I apologize and book it out of there. When I get into the men's locker room, I check just about every lock before realizing that I must have actually locked my crap in the women's locker room. Since I had gone early, there had been no girls in there and I didn't even realize. I had to go up to the front desk and tell them what happened. They all thought it was hilarious and that I was a complete moron. All in all, one of the dumbest things I've ever done. Two things actually. When I was 17, I was looking under the car while running for a rattling noise I heard. I proceeded to push up on the muffler with 5 fingers, burning the tips of every one of them into puss bubbles. The other dumb thing with the same car was when I was looking under the hood for I don't know what and saw a hole that my finger would fit into. I quickly found out the flywheel was in that hole as it ground my fingertip off. It grew back. Never be a mechanic. This may not be the dumbest thing I've ever done, but it is a recent one. A few weeks ago there were a bunch of deer on the front of my property. Right as I exited the front door, they all stared at me. For some reason I thought it was a good idea to run at them for fun. They all darted towards the busy road and a few cars swerved out of the way. It was freaking dangerous because deer can be aggressive, and I could have hurt someone. Fenton. Jesus Christ. I threw an enormous party at my house when my parents were away for a weekend. One friend brought an acquaintance of his and, literally, carried him inside and asked if this guy could crash on my couch for the night. He looked extremely fricked up, but I was already drunk, so I said frick it and we threw him on a couch and just let him chill. I later found out he was fricked up on pills. The party went on for a few hours and people began passing out around 4 or 5 in the morning. When I drink I can just keep going. I don't think I've ever passed out from drinking, so when I was the last one up I was bored. Then the dude from before suddenly came to and wanted a cigarette. Being bored and also craving nicotine, we rooted through a few people's pockets. We didn't find any smokes, but we did find a set of car keys. This dude and I got into my friend's car and drove it to a gas station about 15 minutes away. I was completely obliterated and my most vivid memory was him not wearing shoes. When we got to the gas station they refused to sell anything to us. My next clear memory is having an altercation with a rather pee-off looking cashier. I woke up the next morning thinking the whole thing was a dream. Then I realized I still had my friend's keys in my pocket. I cannot believe we didn't crash his car, get pulled over or do something else dangerous. That's definitely one of the dumbest things I've ever done and part of the reason I don't really drink anymore. TLDR. Drunkenly stole my friend's car with a known pill popper to go buy cigarettes. Only fuzzy memories of the whole thing. Didn't get busted or killed, but I could have. Or you could have killed someone and not remembered. Hiking through the woods with my buddy in Alaska. The area is dense with bears, so I am carrying some bear spray. As I am frolicking through the woods I trip over a log and proceed to spray the bear spray. As it enters the air the wind blows it back into our face and we're standing in the woods teary-eyed and puking for the next 45 minutes. Sliced open my ankle with a straight razor that I was using to pry out a staple that got in my ankle because I used it as a surface to staple papers. Made a throwaway for this one since I promised my friend I would never ever tell Aeon, which I haven't done yet. Really needed to get it off my chest anyways. It was a Tuesday night. I was 17 years old. A friend asked if I wanted to come over and grab a beer. He had bought different kinds of beer so we could taste, read, drink them all and get wasted them and decide which one we liked better. After we finished the last one of them we decided to get on the train to Amsterdam. And before I knew it we were there. Promised my parents to be home in time, but I didn't really care at the time. So we had a lot more beers and were already totally s-faced. A friend of ours who lives in Amsterdam also decided to come over but left in a while. We decided to go eat some but ended up ordering 20 shots of Silver Strike. Both had 10. Next thing I know my dong is getting ridden by a prostitute and I'm 100 euros is lighter than I was when I came there. Blackout. And I wake up in bed remembering quite some things. Told my parents I lost the money at the casino and I'm kinda over it now. Felt a bit dirty for some days though. TLDR. Got totally wasted, Got on the train to Amsterdam and banged a prostitute with a friend in the same room. Sitting in tech class of junior high, I got the idea to put a paper clip into the light socket. I bent a clip into a U shape and stuck one side in, but used a pencil's eraser end to put in the other side. Shut down the school's power and shot sparks for about 20 seconds out of the socket. Didn't get in trouble though. Still stupid. I live in South Philly and I heard a cute girl I had liked for a while was going to be at a club up further north. I rarely go out to these sorts of things, so I was a little nervous and decided not to bring my glasses in case we danced or made out, etc. Biking there was a little difficult without being able to see very well, but I made it. Turns out she didn't go, but I saw some friends anyway and had a good time. Around midnight I decided I had to leave since I had work at 7:30 the next morning, so I hopped back on my bike and pedaled away. Now, I have a hard time navigating around North Philly, so I usually just point myself in the general direction of home and wait until I begin to recognize things. Problem was I had been drinking and couldn't see well, so I pointed myself north instead of south. I was biking for maybe a half hour in the rain before I realized that I had no idea where I was, and North Philly discontinues the grid system of roads that I'm used to, so I couldn't just turn around since I had made so many turns. I found a 7/11 and asked for directions, which weren't very helpful, so I biked some more and called a friend with a smartphone. She didn't pick up, but would end up calling me later. I stopped at a few more gas stations, but the later it got and the dirtier I became made people nervous around me, so usually I would get chewed out. Another problem was I hadn't eaten anything that day, so my muscles were just pumping the alcohol through me even more. With every pedal, I got drunker and drunker. I started running over potholes and crashing into cars. I was a bloody, dirty, wet, blind and generally awful mess. Finally, I found a ramp to the 95 highway. Boozer brain decided, well, if I can drive to Philly, I should be able to bike there too, so off I went. Onto 95, which had a shoulder roughly 2 feet wide. Late at night, in the rain, without my glasses, and absolutely hammered. My friend finally called back, but she couldn't understand anything because the cars were too loud as they were whooshing by and honking at me. Finally I got home at 4:30 AM and could hardly walk. I had eaten pavement so many times on 95 and almost got demolished by trucks that my nerves were completely shot. That was a month ago and my legs still shake when I try to bike. The girl wasn't even there and has no idea. TLDR. I got lost on deep North Philly for 4.5 hours and biked on a crowded highway because of a girl. I quit school, flew right across the country, from Vancouver to Halifax, and moved in with a girl I only knew from Ike, who was herself sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with a couple of old bikers. This was in the late 90s. Worse still, I didn't move there with any intent of getting together with this girl, and it wound up happening anyway after we got drunk together. I was single at the time but she wasn't. I wound up being threatened with violence by her roommates and her now ex-boyfriend for separate reasons. Actually got in a fist fight with one of the roommates, and worst of all, wound up staying with this girl. We moved back to the West Coast together and lived together for 7 years, at which point she went full circle and cheated on me with a guy in Halifax whom she only knew from Ike. Tada. Raced my bike drunk without a helmet last summer. I crashed hard on concrete and ended up with 2nd and 3rd degree road rash on my elbow, wrist, hands, and knee. I could actually see the layer of tissue under my skin. I couldn't move my arm for weeks and my elbow is now one giant scar. Not my proudest moment, just glad I didn't hit my head. Forgot how to spell of while in the middle of a term paper. I remember distinctly typing out each variation I could think of number. That looks wrong. Of number. WTF is wrong with me? How in the heck do you forget how to spell of? This word is by far the worst word in the entire English language to forget because I then tried to look it up in the dictionary. I got all the way to the U section before I realized I had no idea what to even look for because it obviously doesn't start with a U. Yes, this was back before we had Google autocorrect or even American Heritage Dictionary on 32 5.25 inches floppy disks. I was writing this paper on an Atari 2600 with spill-proof keyboard and heat transfer roll printer. Like a boss, I believe a few hours passed where I finally decided to read a book in hopes that I'd recognize it when I read it. 2 hours later and fully engrossed in Hardy Boy's book, I finally remember my term paper. A renewed feeling of stupidity overcame me, and of course now it finally just clicks. TL. Doctor forgot how to spell of. When investigating the metabolic effects of hallucinogens on mammals, I thought it would be a good idea to see what happened if I gave a cat LSD. It manically ran round the lab, breaking several hundreds of pounds worth of glassware before biting an assistant on the leg and escaping my laboratory. This guy is legit. I'd say it's a toss-up between becoming addicted to H as a teenager and going to law school in my mid-20s. Both had long-lasting negative repercussions. I tend to regret law school more, and yes, I'm serious. Practiced yelling help underwater in the pool in case I almost drowned. Then, I almost drowned. Needless to say, the practice didn't really help. Not gone to the doctor after a week of black, old blood, stool. You're bleeding internally. You need to go to the hospital. You're not in shock yet. Second dumbest thing, after being triaged by a doctor at a clinic, like a fool, I stood in line at the literally dying, waiting to be triaged by a nurse. Almost died from internal bleeding into stomach. Woke up after surgery to find out I had cancer. I put off going to the doctor for back pain and some lethargy because I thought I just needed to pop my back really well one good time. The back pain was phantom pancreatitis and I was experiencing kidney failure. I decided to finally go into the hospital after having my wife jump on my back and pop it only made it hurt more. So I decided to give a try for some relief. The doctor later told me if I hadn't come into the hospital that afternoon I would have probably passed away sometime that night or the next day from kidney failure. I spent a month in the hospital. I had no medical insurance and the bills are close to $500,000. I still suffer ill effects. It bankrupted me. I lost my job, and we are now homeless. Basically because I didn't think feeling ill was that big of a deal. During my junior year in college, we had a party to celebrate the return of 2 of our freshman year floormates to the city at 2 AM, and several whiskeys later, I became convinced that I was late for work in downtown St. Louis. Realizing that I was in no condition to drive, I took off on foot toward my workplace, taking the quickest route available, Interstate 64, Highway 44, native St. Louisans. With no regard for traffic or safety, I made it onto the exit ramp before my friends caught up with me and convinced me that I was an idiot. I spent the next several hours throwing up, fell asleep at some point, and then awoke at 7 AM and caught a ride to work on time. I love to go snow skiing. I've been doing it since I was 5. It's the end of the season and walk into a local ski shop for the end of the season sales. A cute girl asks me if she could help me find anything. I ask, do you have any t-shirts with scenes of skiing on them? She says no, I don't think so. For some reason I immediately replied with, well, I am a skier, and because I am a skier I don't have any shirts that prove that I am a skier. And summer is coming soon, so I want to wear a shirt that proves I am a skier. To this day, I have no idea why I said that. The look on her face was the purest form of WTF. One night we decided to use my cell phone as the foosball at a local bar. Was tons of fun until the first goal. Had to come back 3 days later and meet the gaming company manager with the key to open the table up. I wanted to spray a bottle of cologne sideways, but the nozzle wouldn't spray because it was above surface level. To see what was the problem, I put the bottle upright and placed the nozzle right at my eye. I mean actually no more than 2 cms away from my eye, and sprayed myself with cologne. My vision was literally all red from my right eye for a good 3 minutes and it stung like a mother. TLDR. Cologne spray didn't work, so I stuck it to my eye to check and then it worked. Age 17. Sick as heck. Have a PICC. Peripherally inserted central catheter. Basically a big tube that goes in through my upper arm and goes into my heart. For 2 months. 1 week I start feeling really sore all over. I go to the emergency room. They don't do any tests. Just tell me it's probably a side effect of my new meds and send me away. Pain progresses to the point that I can't walk. Parents want to take me to a different emergency room, but I don't want to miss my state exams. so I bullied my parents into letting me go to school for exams in a frickin' wheelchair. During exam, take a bathroom break, pee straight blood, don't mention it, and go back to finish my exam. Herp derp. Go to the hospital after exam. My PICC was infected and it had spread all through my blood. I go into septic shock. No lasting consequences, but I was definitely a freaking dumbass for going to school instead of the hospital that day. Had a few too many drinks and decided it would be a swell idea to drive. Horrible mistake. And $3,000 and 40 hours community service later, with no license for 6 months and a year of probation. It was by far the stupidest thing I've ever done. Not so much for the penalties, they do suck, but for the fact I could have killed someone at night or myself just because of freaking booze. So not worth it, guys. Don't drink and drive, just don't. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.